So I've hit record. Perfect. Well, thanks for being here, Ramin. Appreciate your time, bro.
And we're live. Good.
Cool. So, I mean, the reason I wanted to get you on is just because you're a cool guy. Your content's
Oh,
cool, man.
thank you. That's all you can hope to be in this life, right? You
Yeah.
just want to be a cool guy. Like you want that on your tombstone, just
That's
cool guy or gal or non-binary or fourth option that I might be excluding. You just want to be cool.
No, that's it, man. I saw your content, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, and it was unique in that the message you were expressing was real, truth, but it was in a kind of funny, light-hearted way, and obviously unique to your own style, which you can see through all of the posts that you've put up most recently. So appreciate what you're doing with that, actually.
Oh, right on. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I know that that's also another thing you can only hope to achieve, but it's also never permanent. I always think about any, not that I'm comparing myself to Hendrix or Eddie Van Halen or any of these types of people, but just in general, when something becomes popular, then it can be replicated and stuff, and then you kind of miss the original source. So I'm always aware of like, this might seem interesting now, but in 10 years, it might be at, a Kmart or a Target, or I don't know if you have Kmart or Target in London, the equivalent of that in.
We have the equivalent, yeah, like Costco,
Okay,
for
yeah,
example. So
so it might be like, or like when disco went out of style in 1980, like you might be stuck with a bunch of disco records and be like, okay, so you always have to be ready to change and abandon your old style or your old voice or something.
yeah, so it's about kind of not being too stuck with one particular framework of doing things, not being too attached. It's like whatever I feel is my creative expression in this moment, that's what I'm going to do. And it may be
Yeah,
different 24
exactly.
hours from now. It may be different a month from now. It may be different a decade from now. Who knows? But like that creativity is always changing. You got to kind of feel into the flow of where that's taking you. And it could be different places.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's balance. You need balance and everything. You can't just be all over the place. You need some defined voice. Like there's something to be said about technical skill and practice and that kind of thing. But just don't get too rigid and don't be too chaotic either. So we each have a tendency to either be too rigid or to be unable to commit to finishing stuff. I think we're all that person, or at least know that person that just can never finish something. Like they have a billion ideas, but they've never put one song out. They've never put one art piece out. They've never written a book, let alone an article, maybe just a sentence on Twitter or something. So it's good to also know how to finish things.
Have you been in that position yourself at all, where you haven't finished an idea? Like you've started a
All
million things
the
feeling
time.
inspiration.
All the time. And it's this weird thing where you don't do the thing you should be doing or the thing you want to be doing. You see a lot of musicians that kind of wish they were comedians, a lot of comedians that wish they were musicians. It's like, oh yeah, I'm the best harp player in the world, but what I really want to do is open a cupcake shop. Like there's this little dream in the back of your head that you never finish. But um, I have various projects at various states of completion that either I will finish later, or perhaps I'll never finish. And then when I die, it'll be uncovered and be like, oh, look at this thing that is 40% done. That's kind of interesting. Great.
Did you leave that behind because you felt there was something better at the time, or you just thought the idea was actually maybe this is not, my heart's not in this anymore?
Both. I think because your interests are what they are. So you just kind of, another thing takes your interest more and you say, you'll get back to this in a week. And then it turns into a month, and then it turns into a year. And then everything has changed. I mean, a specific example for me is mobile games, mobile apps, that kind of thing. In 2015, 2016, and beginning of 2017, I was all about it. And then it just kind of became too bogged down with updating all the libraries and the developer license and just all that crap that I don't like to deal with for that. So I just kind of abandoned it. And two of my games aren't even on the store anymore because I don't have the right libraries updated. So I'm just like, oh, whatever. I'm done with this phase of my life for now. Perhaps I'll revisit it, but I'm no longer in developer game hat mode. Well, I
Uh,
like to keep it simple and less friction, that kind of thing.
Similar to what you posted about today, actually, about chasing a
Exactly.
million and one
Yeah.
different things. And when I say today, I mean, where are we? Like not even March, end of
February
February.
February 25th, 2001. 12 p.m. Pacific time, and then you're what, 7 p.m.
8
Man,
p.m.
I don't
8 p.m.
8 p.m.
London time. Yeah,
Is
UK.
that what it's called? London time?
It's called GMT. I don't even know what that stands for, but
GMT. See, Americans were so just uh we only care about us and we only know like the name of our things. If even that, most Americans don't even know the name of all the states or the name of their own governor, the name of their own mayor. But especially with the rest of the world, we're like, who's the prime minister of the UK? Winston Churchill? What? Is it Tony Blair? Who is it? I don't even know the guy. So yeah, interesting. GMT.
yeah. So where are we going with this? I forgot. Oh
Were,
yeah.
were you
So your
born in
host.
London?
I was, yeah. I've
Born
always
and
been.
raised?
Yep.
Interested.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go back. I've only been once, but I loved it.
What brought you
Rain
over here?
or shine. What's that?
What brought you down here when you came?
Oh, just went with my parents. They used to go to university there, visiting some old friends. Um, and once you're in Europe, you kind of try to see as much as you can because it's all close together. So we spent like a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks in London proper, and the rest in like Italy and Spain and France,
Nice.
maybe some other places.
What university did they study at?
Cambridge.
Nice. Okay.
Wait, did they? I should I should know that. I think so. I
You
think
just
one
want
of
them to
them.
you just want them to sound
That's a
cool.
good one, right? Or I might be thinking of Monty Python. I'm like Cambridge and Oxford, both of those, right? And then I remember it was just a Monty Python documentary I watched, and my parents never even went to school. I don't even know my parents. It turns out to be one of those things.
um, but being born and raised here, I absolutely hate the rain. Like the weather is, you'll hear everyone complaining about the weather here, and it's for good reason because we barely get the sun. And when the sun decided to show up last year, everyone was in lockdown, and it was like 5 months of solid like sun, and the equivalent
Perfect.
for you would probably be 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It was roughly around there, and so that's like we were all
Yeah.
loving it. So it was difficult for many people to not go out and enjoy themselves and flood themselves at the
And
beach.
I love the way that Brits complain too. I love that they complain about the weather, and it's just always some little thing. I mean, that's a generalization, of course. Of course, it's not a monolith. There's however many million people, and you've runs the gamut from no complaining at all to complaining every single second. But just I would get it. I would get complaining about nonstop rain. That would get old after 3 days. I'm
Where were
in
you?
Los Angeles, so we get rain once a year, if even that.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've
Hmm.
got a few friends out there, and most of the time it's just pure sun.
Yeah,
But
I like it.
were you born and raised there, or
No, I was born in Sarnia, Ontario. Then I lived in Edmonton, Alberta. Then I lived in Lake Jackson, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Austin, Texas, and then Los Angeles. So all over the place. Or
but
not all over the place. That's like 4 places. Like pretty pretty similar. Like one very uh I guess Canada was more um like early childhood, and then teens to early 20s was Texas, and then late 20s 30s is Los Angeles, and we'll see where I go next.
what took you outside of Canada then? Like, what was that transition like?
It was during um early junior high, around then, like maybe when I was 11 years old. So it wasn't the best. I mean, it's not like I got my ass kicked. What's a good word for it? Not like not the worst, but I mean, I was a chubby kid, glasses, like foreign name, brown kid in Texas during that window of social groups changing, and it's a lot of different things to check off. Like, wait, you got a weird name and you're from Canada, like you don't even know where to start with it. But overall, like, not bad. I thought it was pretty good childhood, but it was difficult to adjust. I feel like I didn't really like the dust didn't really settle, at least internally, for the first 2-3 years. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of getting this Texas thing. I'll put on this belt. There's a football game. People like to go mudding. They shoot guns. All right, here we go.
Where was creativity showing up like in those early years? Was it showing up in those early years? Was that something you found
Yeah,
later on?
I've been a lifelong doodler and lifelong musician, instrument player. I've played violin since I was like 4.5, 5 years old. Picked up guitar after that. Got into funk bass a lot. I got into like Chili Peppers and Funkadelic and Incubus and stuff that was, I mean, Funkadelic's of course 70s and stuff, but Chili Peppers and Incubus and that stuff was more like 90s popular music, I guess. So I really liked that. And but I have like old notebooks, or my parents do. I don't keep anything, but they have old notebooks of me from like math classes, history classes, and just doodles all across the everything. Like notes are never taken. It's all just whether it's boobs or rocket ships or like a cat or the Punisher logo. Like, so just my hand always is just going. So I've never had a problem with that. It's more of the bringing it home part is where I have to focus more, because it's so easy to get something 90% done and then be okay with not finishing it.
So that was something that you were just always doing throughout your teen years,
Mhm.
just doodling and drawing stuff.
Yeah. And I think it's been refined a bit. And I don't consider myself like a particularly good technical artist, like, because there's people that, they can look at a landscape for 3 seconds and then draw the whole thing by memory, or those portrait artists. Like, so many pretty much homeless people are really good artists. Not all homeless people and not non-homeless people aren't good artists, but we've all seen like someone just like living on the street and they're just brilliant artists, but they're not, I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe it's not different enough, or they don't have the business side to do it, or maybe it's just mental issues or bad luck, like a combination of all of those. But it made me realize that it's not enough to just be good at something. Like, being impressive is not enough. You can be the most impressive person in the world, but if you don't have that business thing within you, or a business partner to kind of take care of the stuff that you need to take care of to live in a 3D physical reality plane, then it's not going to get you anywhere if you're the best, street performer in the world.
Yeah, no, 100%. There needs to be a bit of structure around the creativity or the gift that you have, so that you can kind of package it to the world.
Yeah. And I'm fine with that. I hope I don't sound like in a bitter way of that, like, oh, it should just be like art. You should just be able to express yourself. And perhaps we'll end up there, like, as we head into this purely virtual utopia slash dystopia, and where you don't have to like learn the algorithm and how to use hashtags and what time to upload your thing and all that. You can just, oh, I feel like drumming today, and then you drum, and then whoever's into that in that moment is looking at you, and then that gets converted into some Bitcoin currency, and then so attention literally is currency at that point. And everyone is taken care of and also monitored, and also it's homogenous. But I digress. I don't know what the point of all that was. I think the point of it is that currently you do have to take care of business, and that involves stuff you may not like in terms of finances, social media, um, yeah, that kind of thing. Learning how to export the right file type, that thing.
Yeah, you still have to learn how to use the technology at hand to like convey your message, because I hate doing that stuff personally. Like, I'm a very creative person, but then it comes to editing a video or like uploading files, and I'm just like, oh, do I have to do this? I'd rather just pay someone to
Yeah.
just get it done.
Is that your main thing, or do you not have a main thing in terms of writing or video production?
No,
Or
it was a few different things. So basically I ended up studying law. Then I came out of that and realized that this is bullshit. It's not for me. And then
I think you
I
said that on the intro episode.
yeah, I did a very long time ago. Yeah, I
Which I
said
feel very bad for people like that. I feel like I was born with that. I feel like I knew law sucked before I even knew what ABCs were. And
that.
I have friends who have gone as far as to been at the bar exam, and then 10 minutes into the bar exam, just getting up and leaving it all behind. Like, so they finished law school, they're about to pass the bar or fail the bar, or whatever. And they're just, I can't do this. I gotta go.
Yeah,
Or
that's
like,
courageous, man. I felt it like throughout the last year at law school, and I was just like, well, maybe I want to do. I don't know. I was trying to convince myself. I was like, maybe I can do it, maybe not. Let me just finish it. So I finished
was
it, and
it
then
Was it money that drove you, or was it like parental approval, or a combination of all of it?
so I think it was probably a combination of all of it, plus not really knowing what else There is. It was like, well, I've got
Mm.
this under my belt. I have no other clue what I'm passionate about. Like, I have zero clue. Like, it's not something I've explored. Um, but I knew I was good at talking. It was like you doodling in class all the time. I wasn't doodling, I was talking. So I was just getting kicked out of class all day long for just distracting people and talking. And that was from like the age of like 5, 4, all the way up to like university. So it's just, I had that ability to just want to communicate. And then
Gift of gab.
yeah, exactly. And then it naturally ended up in sales and recruitment, commission-based role. And that's where alongside that, I kind of then started podcasting and exploring that. And it became like, it's something that I just enjoyed and loved doing. So I've just kept doing that. And then,
Why'd you take the break? You said you took like a year break on the podcast.
yeah, I did. Yeah. So that was around because I guess spiritually, if you want to go a bit deeper, I felt this calling to explore something a bit more within myself. And that meant pausing
Mm.
the routine that I had of constantly keeping myself busy, whatever that is, being productive and filling in the gaps. And actually, subconsciously, that is a way of running away from what you might want to not otherwise realize about yourself, right? Being on your own or sitting in silence is not something that is quite easy to do. I mean, basic 10-minute meditation for most people is impossible. I've definitely found it hard. I'm not by no means a guru, but going through that process of just self-exploration and actually keeping a free calendar is a scary thing for most people, because it's like, well,
Mm.
if I'm not packing my days with stuff, meeting people and doing stuff, what am I going to do? Then I have to look at myself in the mirror and start thinking about things that I don't want to think about, and then all of these things. So then I guess all of 2020 and most of 2019 consisted of doing plant medicine, doing various
Which
other
ones?
ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah. So I went to the Amazon in October, November 2019. Prior to that, I also did mushrooms and then LSD a few months later when I had the opportunity to do that. So all of those combined, plus a lot of meditation and yoga, kind of it gave me a lot of experiences that I felt like there's something else that I'm realizing about myself and the world at large, the universe, and all that kind of stuff. And so I started journaling. Well, I was journaling anyway the last few years, but more so focused on the outcome of all of these experiences. So when I reflected back during lockdown, all the things that I had naturally written down before, during, and after the various experiences, I realized actually there's something here. I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's something creative that's bubbling up. And actually, yesterday when I was thinking about it, the words that came up was, there's something flowering with it. There was something flowering within me, and I had no choice but to water it. Like it was just
Ooh.
this organic thing that came up. I had no intention of becoming an author. I still don't. It's hard to explain. It's something that's just coming through me. Same with being a podcast host or hosting a podcast. It's like, I don't want to be known for a podcast. It's just the form of expression that I'm following right now. So could be different a year from
Yeah.
now. So yeah. And I do feel like the word that I actually described on your post today was introduced to me by someone else a few years ago, and that's multi-potentialite. I don't know if you've heard that word.
Multi-potentialite. No. Can you unpack that?
Someone who has various purposes in life. So this usually people think purpose or a gift is like this one thing that you have to find. It becomes your mission to unpack it or to dig it up. But actually, what if it could be multiple things? What if you're someone who can actually exceed and excel in multiple things, and you're here to serve in multiple ways? So today you might be doing a podcast. Next year you could be an author. After that you could be acting. After that you could be setting up multiple charities. Like there's different things that you could do to serve and express yourself. So yeah,
Yeah.
just following that flow that's happening, that's
Yeah, and
blossoming.
I really believe that the whole concept of the rich get richer applies across the board, not just with money. Like if you're being creative, that is going to lead to more creativity, as opposed to people think that, well, I better hoard these ideas and not share them. Like if you're in a recording session, like, oh, I got to keep this idea for me, and then I'll give them the B or the C ideas, and I'll keep the A ideas for myself. But really, you should just be giving out your A material all the time, and then you'll see that you start to regenerate more A material, or
That's
pursuing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's coming out of fear though, isn't it? It's like if you have the courage to share it, or you get into a place where you're comfortable to share it, because you know that actually collaboration is where the idea is actually going to blossom, because they could add a piece to it, or you could both through conversation think of something else. that can better enhance the idea that you've just started with, cultivated with. And then the ego kind of gets in the way. This is my idea. I want to be recognized for it. It's my copyright, trademark. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, who you hiding from? You're all the same person, just wearing a different mask. And that's why the cover of my book is a mask, because it's like, take it off, man. What is it? Everyone is just blood with guts. That's it.
Yeah. Bones, blood, and guts. And a little like surge of electricity or whatever it is
Yeah.
that's keeping us alive. My friend Shane Mauss, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a comedian. He does the Here We Are podcast, and we were having this discussion about the two different schools of motivation. So you've got the, Jocko Willink, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tom Bilyeu, whatever school of motivation of like hustle, do it. You got to do it. The world's not going to give you anything. You have to make your own opportunities. And then there's the Esther Hicks law of attraction, school of meditation or motivation on the other side, where you just have to think about what you want and make a vision board. And then it just shows up, just easy flow. It just comes to you. You don't need to hustle, all that kind of stuff. But both of those schools are neglecting the collaboration aspect of you are part of the whole ecosystem. And both of those just kind of emphasize on you, do it yourself, you, but you need like a support system as well sometimes. And he unpacked it a little better, but I'd never thought of it that way, how both of those are just so individually focused.
How has that shown up for you in your journey in terms of collaborating and just expressing creativity? Is that something you've done on your own? Like, have you had experience doing it with other people? Like, what's that look like for you?
I'm pretty selective about who I like to collaborate with, but I found that I don't do it with my visual art a whole lot, because those are more, drawing is a thing you do yourself. But with music stuff, I've always found that being in a room with other people brings out another level that you don't attain when you're just in your bedroom, just noodling on the guitar or the piano or something. Like having someone else there, and then it's a conversation. Same with podcasts. Like when I try to record solo podcast episodes, they just feel like they're rambling. They don't have like the gems aren't quite as there as when you're just talking to someone and you go on a long rant or they go on a long rant. Like being in the room with someone else kind of brings out that next level of things, which solo stuff is good too. And some people have that ability to sit alone and just talk into a microphone with no one there and have it be somewhat interesting. But even with, do you know, like Bill Burr? I feel like Bill Burr, even with him, it's better with when he's got another guest on. I always feel like that's better than when it's just him rambling into the void.
What my experience has been with that is one of my close friends who I met at university. Like we talk about like everything and anything, and we could end up talking for hours on end without realizing the time. And what happens in our conversations, what we realized is, and we put a word to this, and we called it the third mind, because when we're speaking, it's almost as if individual egos dismantle or disappear in that moment, and there's something else that you're both tapped into at the exact same time. And so conversation is flowing without any gaps, like it's seamless. You're in complete flow state. And it's kind of weird when you think about it logically, because it's like, well, you don't have a script, I don't have a script, how do you know what I'm going to say next? And it's like, where are you getting your topics from? And like which pool are you pulling your ideas from? And how do you know that's the same as mine? So it's this weird thing that we're both plugged into, and you end up harnessing so much different energy, and the ideas tend to be bigger, broader, more expansive and creative, just because I don't know, you're not tapped into your own pool of experience or knowledge, and that's so limited to your five senses. Like whatever you already know is based on your limited five senses, which is different to someone else. But then even beyond that, it's like when you're plugged into something beyond your five senses, that's when you can tap into, I don't know what you want to call it, but infinite wisdom.
Yeah, source, infinite wisdom, God, spirit, the one, 0 point energy. It's got so many names, and depending on who you talk to, they hate like 9 out of 10 of the names, and you got to find that right one. It's like reverse entropy is what it's called, or it depends on whether you're talking to a woo-woo person or a strict materialist, which I like both of those. I like materialists and I like woo-woo crazy alien talking people as well. I think we all don't know anything and we all know everything.
Oh, I completely resonate with that. 100%. It's the paradox, isn't it? So everything
Yeah.
is a paradox. It's weird. So so in your journey then with the content you've got currently, I know that's not kind of where you started. You started off doodling, playing a lot of music with live instruments. What was the journey like in terms of just thereafter, and how did your creativity get a bit more crafted? Like, did you end up doing it full time shortly after school?
Yeah,
Like, what did that look like?
I think scarcity, I think financial scarcity is a good motivator. I mean, not that I'm a, free market Ben Shapiro, like just work and it'll happen. Like I do believe in whatever social structure things, helping people out when you fall down, that kind of thing. But just speaking personally, the I don't think I would have put out nearly as much stuff if I didn't have rent to pay, bills to pay, and also if I didn't hate honest work. I hate, going to a building, working for a company, all that stuff, the corporate meetings, just the whole world. I couldn't stand it. I didn't even spend any time in it. I just knew I didn't like it the same way I knew I didn't like law. So I started doing like the doodles took a turn for the more professional in university when there's the newspaper where there's a comic section, and then you could try out to be a comic artist there, and I believe you got like $10 per strip. And I remember thinking like, that's so cool. Like I can draw a $10 bill, and it takes me less time than if I were to draw a real $10 bill because there's less detail than drawing a real $10 bill. That's cool. And from there, I like compiled all those strips into a book. I ended up having like ideas for like longer pieces that weren't just strips. So before I knew it, I'm like just selling these comic books and stuff. And then in the time in between then and now, I like kind of stopped doing comics. I started to pursue stand-up comedy more. I became like that intensely for like about a decade. I'm like all about trying to get on the festivals, build your hour, get on TV, that kind of thing. And um then I don't know when I started to drift away from that more. I think after moving to Los Angeles and just I don't know, after it had been a while, like I kind of became more insular. I didn't feel like going out as much. And of course that helped a ton with the pandemic, of course, because stand-up comedy just evaporated all of a sudden. So I was like, oh, it's great that I moved my eggs out of that basket into the purely virtual. And from there, when I started putting out more stuff on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all these places, people started asking if I had prints available, if I had shirts available, if I had, various types of merchandise available, which I had never really thought of making. So then I just followed the demand of, oh, people seem to want prints of this. Maybe I'll open up a little print store. Oh, maybe we'll open up a shirt store. So I never sought out to, I'll make a big merchandise art store. It just slowly followed the demand of what people want. So yeah, I think, and that brings me to now, with the exception of a few gaps. Hold on, the cat really wants to go outside. Hold on, I'm gonna let him out real quick.
Go for it.
And we're back. Was that last thing did it make sense?
It did. No, it did.
Okay, good.
What drew you to stand-up comedy? Because I love watching stand-up comedy, but I think it's one hell of a courageous thing to do.
I the biggest push, and I've talked about this on a couple of podcasts before, but the short version, I've always wanted to do it, and I believe everybody wants to do it, with the exception of like what 10% of extremely introverted, shy people. But even them, I feel like, because we've all been funny in the context of a party or in class or something, and it feels really good to come up with an idea and then take the chance on saying it. Perhaps it's a little bit inappropriate, not too inappropriate, just that benign violation that humor researchers talk about, where it's like not that wrong, but kind of wrong, and depending on your taste, it's that. So I always loved that. I loved George Carlin, I loved Mitch Hedberg, I loved Rodney Dangerfield, I mean Maria Bamford. I could go on and on and on. But but age 21, I think, I was driving home after a couple of drinks, and I got pulled over, and they did the breathalyzer test on me, and I was slightly over the legal limit, and I went to jail for the night, and it was very expensive. And I didn't think you could get a DWI unless you were like crashing into a building or if you hit a 4-year-old or something. I didn't know that if you were just regular driving safely, you could still get that. So that was a little wake up call. And I'm like, oh, what am I doing with my life? I'm getting a DWI and like I'm not even doing anything I like with my life. This life sucks. What's the one pie in the sky thing I'd like to try? So that was the little push into researching the open mic scene and be like, okay, I'll go watch an open mic. Then after watching 3 open mics, I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I'll go up at the very end, and then you bomb your ass off, and then you try it again, and then you also bomb your ass off, and then you do it a 3rd time. And this is what really stuck out to me, was that the 3rd time I did it, I figured it out. Not stand-up comedy, but I figured out something. Like I figured out how to not completely blow. Like I figured out just write some jokes and stick to it, even if no one is laughing. Just promise yourself, I'm going to get through these 15 jokes regardless of the response to it, and like face the audience when you do it. Don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't hide behind the mic stand. Just little stuff like that. So I committed to that. And then that was my first good set. And I remembered that after that, everyone who was part of that scene, they thought that was my first set. They were like, who's this guy? Like, where'd you come from? That was a great first set. And I realized they saw those last 2. They just didn't remember them because those sucked. So it's a good lesson that if you really take that chance, then they won't remember you if you were bland and stupid. Like they'll only remember that first hit. So from there, from open micer, you become, eventually you get to do the showcase sets that are a level above open mic. Then you get to become MC. Then you get to become a middle act, a feature, and then finally you get to become a headliner if you're lucky. And then if you do well there, then you start selling out theaters or whatever. I know it's different in the UK. I think the UK has it set up where the headliner actually goes first and then introduces other people and then does time at the end. So then it builds that trust, that credibility if the main person is there first. And UK also has more structure. There's like more festivals and the reviews and footlights. There's like, they care about the arts more. And so it's like more grimy in the States. But that was my experience with it. And I made it on the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. I did the Montreal Comedy Festival. I have an album out called You Were Good Too. And yeah, and I always try to remember that first step to taking that first open mic set is very scary, and it's one that we forget to do over and over again. It's very easy to get comfortable and then never take that plunge again. So it's like, what's that big step that you're not doing, like where you've gotten comfortable and you have your identity, like I'm a comedian or I'm a writer, and so you don't have to take that chance. But it's very healthy to make a fool of yourself. Take that chance, take the big step of what you want to do.
Was there any jokes that you felt kind of hesitant about sharing, but you just did it anyway?
At the time, like at first, well, I feel like I would be like that now more, but during the era I was most active, 2007 through 2000, like 18, 19, it was, there was less like blogging and getting in trouble. Like you could kind of say anything. Louis C.K. was saying the N-word like nonstop. People loved him. They didn't know he was jerking off in front of everyone. It was different. I would say no. I liked to take that chance and get those groans, get in trouble. And if like, I remember I would kind of get scolded by bookers sometimes, like if I was doing an important showcase set and then I chose to say retard or something at the time when I could have easily not, but I still chose it because I'm like the stupid 23-year-old kid that thinks he can be George Carlin. And now looking back on it, I'm like, you idiot, you didn't have to throw that word when there's industry watching. And so little stuff like that. But I can't think of a joke that I'm like, no, I shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have taken that chance. Maybe I'll think of 100 though after this call. I'm sure there is. I've got old notebooks that is probably, I just don't want to look at them. They're probably all awful.
Make you cringe when you look back at them.
Yeah.
What was the process of putting together like jokes or putting together a set or a piece?
Oh, you just cut out there. Can you try one more time?
Oh yeah, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear you?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I can hear you now. I don't know where you went, but now you're
All right,
back.
I'm back. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, what's the process like for you in terms of writing a piece or writing for a particular set or a show?
So I tried to at least have a couple of new jokes every time I did a set. If you're doing a longer set, that would be more, but kind of a hack, not really a hack, but you would open with the tried and true, and you would close with the tried and true, and then you would pepper the new stuff in the middle, because most of the time people remember the beginning and the end, and then the middle is who cares. As long as you weren't just completely awful, they won't remember that. So I would sandwich them in the middle. And when you're building an hour, you try to like segment it off and say like, well, what's an hour? That's what, 5 minutes a month? I think so. Yeah, that's 5 new minutes a month that works. And then that's an hour, which it's harder to come up with a good hour than you think. Like you start doing stand-up, you're like, I've got 3 minutes. And then the next month you're like, I've got 20 minutes. And then a year goes by, you're like, that whole 20 minutes sucks. I've got nothing. It's worse than zero. So you kind of, you learn what high quality and road worthy stuff is the longer you do it, because perhaps it works in your local town, and then you go on the road a bit and you realize they don't get these local references, or they're a little more uptight, or they're a little more they want you to be more honest. I heard that about Scotland. I've never done comedy there, but I think that's where the Edinburgh Festival is. Is it in Ireland or Scotland? I think it's in Scotland.
Yeah, it's in
But
Scotland.
I've heard that those audiences do not like a put on. They really want you to be your authentic self, and they can just smell it from just miles away. If you're doing this put on little act or something, they'll heckle you and make sure you get the real you out of that. So I like that.
Yeah, I think that's the best though, and it seems like that's when you kind of that's the time when people started remembering your sets. Like that third one sounds like you were in the flow a lot more, and you were just embracing. Like if the audience didn't receive it so well, you'd just be like, okay,
Yeah.
I thought you would have received that a bit better. Fair enough. Maybe I'm not that funny. But I think that's what makes a great act, is someone who you feel is really like just comfortable being in their own skin. And you know, when you look at the self-help world, there's so much wisdom or rules to being successful and being your authentic self. But actually, the when you boil it down after doing lots and lots of reading and taking all these courses, it always comes back to just being yourself and
Yeah.
figuring out who you are, what's your lane, what makes you unique, and just do that. Like, be comfortable with that. Don't compare yourself to what should be the way to do things or the way that other people are doing things. And
Yeah. And people will come around to it.
exactly. Yeah, I know. I feel that as well, because everyone's got a different energy, right? So people will just feel that if it's something fresh, because you're actually creating from your authentic self, that will come across to other people. And like, people aren't stupid. Like, they can feel energy at the very base level. Like, is this person being authentic, or they're trying to put me on? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I feel that way with so many different characters. I found that I read this somewhere where it's not about being likable, like, and the person who wrote it was like, I don't even like likable people. And it really got me thinking, like, yeah, likable people aren't that interesting compared to like true authentic characters. I mean, I brought up Ben Shapiro earlier, and I'm like, I probably disagree with him on every little political thing that you could imagine, but I appreciate that there is this character that has that viewpoint and like speaks really fast, and it's all about logic and facts, and you're wrong, and that kind of thing. I'm like, good for him for that character existing. I love that. Have you heard of Review of the Week, that YouTuber?
No.
Or it's Report of the Week or Review of the Week, but it's this kid who's like, since he's 9 years old, been putting on a suit with like slicked back hair and reviewing energy drinks and fast food. And the way he speaks, he just seems like this kid that would get made fun of so much in school, but now he's got like 30 million YouTube subscribers. They love him, and everyone is just like, don't you dare make fun of Review Bra. Don't question him. Like, this guy stayed true to who he is, and he's a vibe, that kind of thing. So if you tap into who you deep are in your soul, hopefully don't be a child molester, serial killer. I mean, I get that if people are listening to this, perhaps 1 out of a million will be that or something. But with the exception of that, you should just be your deepest self, whether that's a very sarcastic person, or perhaps you're overly sweet, and you're gonna meet some friction along the way, but stay true to it, because otherwise you're living your life for the outside world, and that's always changing.
I read something interesting in a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And in
Is
that
that
book,
Peterson? Or no, that's Maps of Meaning.
no, this one is by Rollo May. So he was actually a psychiatrist, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And one of his clients, he quoted one of his clients who said something really interesting. And he said, I feel like I'm just a bunch of mirrors reflecting what other people want me to be. And I was like, damn. That guy knows that he's lost.
That's a comment I hear after a lot of people commit suicide. Not after a lot of people commit suicide, but after an individual commits suicide, like Anthony Bourdain, Brody Stevens, the Linkin Park guy, Chester Thompson, Kate Spade. These were all like in 2016, I think. But afterwards, like, you have all these people saying like, oh, that was a mask they were putting on, that they were okay, and they weren't okay that month. Because I remember
it's crazy because that happens with a lot of public figures, like just like you mentioned, and there's so many others, like Robin Williams as well, or Robbie Williams, one of them.
Both of them? No, it was Robin, right?
No,
Robbie is Millennium.
It's Robin. I think Robin.
Robin, yeah, the comedian killed himself, but that was different. He had a neurodegenerative disorder that like really was messing with his every moment life. Not that he wasn't depressed before that. Of course he was. Yeah. He always talked about depression and contemplating suicide and stuff. But what really pushed him over the head or the edge was that disease. And I think there's a whole doc about it. So yeah, I used to think that one was just depression too, but I think his was depression plus the other thing.
Yeah.
No, but the Linkin Park guy, he was like, there's a video of him an hour before he hung himself where he's just eating those Harry Potter jelly beans and laughing with his family and all is well. And in his head, he's probably got the rope in the other room and it's like, yep, gonna do that project later. Or Tim Ferriss talks about wanting to hang himself, and he did it the Tim Ferriss way, where he researched the 10 best ways to hang yourself. And
I did not know that. I read
he talks about it,
week, right?
Oh yeah.
Or I read that and that was it. Like, I've not listened to any of his podcasts. I've not looked at his content. I know that he's very big online, but I just haven't felt the need to look at his content.
It doesn't resonate.
So, well, I mean, I just haven't felt the calling to research it. I know a lot of people listen to his podcast, and he's probably a really knowledgeable guy, but I just don't know that much about him. So that's a shock to me. I didn't know that.
Do you watch any self-help guys like Gary Vaynerchuk or what's his name? Now it's escaping me. The guy that was a monk for a while.
Jay Shetty.
Yeah, that guy.
Dude,
do you like
my Instagram and my YouTube was flooded with all of these individuals like a few years ago. Like, that's all the stuff I was watching. Les Brown, Eric Thomas, all of these individuals. Like, there's no one that you can name that I don't know up to a point. But then, as I said, like mid 2019 onwards, I just went through a process of just detoxing from all of that, because I was like, I need, just like the mirrors comment, I was like, if I stripped all that back, all the stuff that I'm learning, or I think I need to know, and all the stuff that I think I am right now, where does that leave me? I'm a blank slate. Then from that place, who am I? So let me unfollow all this. Let me try and unlearn all of this stuff. And then from that place, what do I naturally get drawn to, or what do I do, or what comes out of me creatively? Because right now I'm just like intaking knowledge. And I think there's a place for knowledge to get you from point A to point B in certain parts of your journey. But if you keep doing that to a certain extent, all you're doing really becomes counterproductive. You're just stuffing yourself with other people's ideas and knowledge and information, and you're not really coming up with anything creative on your own.
Yeah.
obviously there's a debate about, is there any real creative idea, or an original idea? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but you don't give yourself a chance to allow something original from your heart or your soul to flourish if you're bombarding yourself with other people's information. And I don't know, it just came to a natural point where I was like, I need to unfollow all of these individuals, and not from an egotistical point of view, but I was like, it's the same old stuff. Like, I get it. Okay, you're doing your thing, you're in your own lane. I need to find mine now. So I need to stop
Yeah.
listening to you for a while.
You get the joke. And if you get enough advice, it all cancels itself out because
Exactly.
there's no end to the amount of advice you can get. And this guy, Naval Ravikant, I think he was talking about how most of our problems today are problems of abundance. Before it was problems of scarcity. And if you found a piece of fruit or something sweet to eat, that would be a good thing, and like you only get that once every few months, and you got to eat as much as you can. Now we got to not eat so much sugar. It's everywhere. We got to not watch so much content. It's everywhere. We're even past the information age. Like the information age was like 2010. And then we entered the misinformation age with fake news and like this split. And now we're like past the misinformation age. We're in the imagination age where it's just kind of all there. And you can look up studies or data for anything you want to convince yourself is true. And that's why we have this, partisan split everywhere, because everyone is tuned into their own bubble and like, this is truth. No, this is truth. And well, no, it's standing outside of it is truth. No, standing outside of that is truth, and so on and so on. So it's all about just, not stressing out so much. And if you feel like following all those gurus, then great. And if you're sick of them, then just unfollow, as though it's a video game where like we're so weird about unfollowing people, especially people we know personally. But I like to think of it as a computer game where in a computer game, I'll blow your head off and it's all fun. I'll perform fatalities on you nonstop. I won't let you win. We'll play for 2 hours. I won't give in. But online, it's like, no, I gotta keep following this person I met 6 years ago because it's real. It's computer. No, it's computer game. Just unfollow them. Be nice to them in real life, but for your own health, like you should be able to curate what you want to see.
100%. I feel like you're an individual who's able to see objectively outside of yourself sometimes. Like your consciousness isn't limited to just the things that you currently know. You may or may not think about this yourself, but you come across that way. And I'm sure many people in your podcast and people that are in your network right now kind of feel that way about, when they speak to you. That's the type
I'll
of
take
person you
it. Yeah. He who stands outside of all of it.
are. Yeah,
Cool
exactly.
guy, stands outside of everything. Which now
That's the
that's kind of gotten irritated. I mean, I know you're saying it in a different way, but it's funny how there's a term that's like called both sidesism or whataboutism, and in any attempt to reconcile opposites can sometimes be construed as like, oh well, you're sitting on the fence. But it's not sitting on the fence, it's like standing behind the fence, standing very far away from the fence.
Oh, I am the fence.
Yeah, I am the fence. I am
just
the
just just throw a
opposition.
curveball in. Just throw a curveball in. I'm standing on both sides of the fence, and I am the fence.
Yeah.
I know. um, where was I going to go with this? My question was, or the thing I wanted to ask you was, oh yeah, in terms of, I'm just curious about the tools that you may or may not have used along your journey to kind of help expand your consciousness, whether that's conversations with the types of friends that you chose to have in your life, plant medicines, whatever it might be, meditation. Just curious about what other people do, and it'd be good to hear, your perspective on that.
There's never been one thing. It's all been building upon each other slowly. I would say that psychedelics are helpful to step outside of yourself and see the bigger picture and realize that you had been inside yourself the whole time and that you've never of course you look in the mirror, but you're not really feeling like you're the everything. You're still just looking at you. YouTube, of course, helps a lot. Like I can't point to one talk, but I think we all are listening to just, hundreds and thousands of hours of what Terrence McKenna, Alan Watts, Ram Dass, like Esther Hicks, whatever is is working for you in that moment. And sometimes it doesn't work depending on where you are in life. Because I remember the first time I heard Ram Dass, I was like, who's this old guy talking about the soul? Who cares? Shut up. And then 10 years later, I'm like, this is amazing. And then I realized halfway through the talk, I had heard a sentence that I had heard 10 years ago. I'm like, that's the old guy I said I didn't care about. That's the most important guy. Why did I not care about him? So it just depends on what resonates with you then. The non-psychedelic, non-YouTube stuff, I say yoga, meditation helps. Some people, it's not for them. You said like you have trouble sitting still for 10 minutes. My friend Noah Lampert, he's never been able to meditate, but he's gotten into Neville Goddard, Imaginal techniques. I think he's the reincarnation of Neville Goddard. I want to go on record saying that. And so he realized that, oh, you don't have to just sit still and focus on your breath. You can, do these imaginal acts where you're like imagining stuff, and then that way your brain can still and do that. But I say those. So what was it? YouTube, psychedelics, meditation, yoga, sunlight, good friends. And that's it. If you don't have it, I don't know what to, if that doesn't work, I don't know what to tell you, gang. I think you're SOL then.
No, those are
am I missing anything? I mean, of course, music too. And we all have music that's changed our life. You'll be like, oh, I heard John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, and then it changed my whole life. Or I heard the Shins and it changed my whole life. But some people it might not work. So try to find what you really like. And another line I heard that I liked a lot was, when you learn something new, ask yourself, would you still care about this if I couldn't tell anybody? And so much of our knowledge we're like learning so that I can't wait to tell someone that, and then I'll appear smart and I'll be that. So like, just imagine you can't tell anybody about this new thing you learned. Would you still care? And if so, then that means it's for you. That's good.
That's a really good question. Where did you hear that?
That's also, I think, that Naval Ravikant guy. He like put out I think it was Tim Ferriss, or maybe it was his own podcast, but he's the guy with the quote of, if you get too much advice, it cancels itself out. And he had another line similar to that about, like, don't try to read every book. Like, find a really good book that resonates with you and spend your time rereading that. And don't worry about finishing books, because that can kind of be an ego thing where it's like, I've read 60 books this month from beginning to end, even though I hated 80% of it and didn't retain any of it. If you like, it should be a book where you're like taking in each sentence and then thinking about it and pondering over the day. And like, even skip around books, like download 100 samples on your Kindle, go through some of those. It's about what state do you want to get into, and how can do you want to be less stressed out? Do you want to be more motivated? Do you want to be more ambitious? Like, there's different roads to go down. Perhaps you have too much ambition and you need to pull back. Perhaps you're too lazy, you need to pull forward. But I don't know, you can OD on some of those if you're just going nonstop.
Yeah, information overload, and it's too much, and it can be counterproductive as well. And I actually read that concept of reading only a few books and then rereading them over and over again and kind of limiting it to that. And the place that I was in my life at that time was just like, well, that's boring.
Yeah.
I'm missing out on I'm missing out on so many other cool books. I want to read like all these other lists that people are putting out. Like, I want to complete them so I can say that I read 100 books this year, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think we do it with pornography already and we don't know it. Like, and I know some people have a problem with it and stuff. I just like to use it as a salient metaphor, but it's like rare today, I think, that people find a porn and like just like hyper fixated on it. I think everybody's just all over the place with like 100 tabs open, but we don't like to do that with other things. But it kind of shows your true deep self, that you're kind of all over the place. That might not be right, and I might disagree with this in 6 months or something, but it just came to me as a parallel where we're already doing that with other forms of content.
No, yeah, I think so, and I think it does show up in those spaces. And what I found interesting is that even with owning like 100 or 200 books, when I look back, I'm like, well, I've only read and enjoyed 5 of these. What's the point? Like, and a part of the detox process I told you about was getting rid of books. I was like, well, who wants these? Like, maybe my friends want them, or maybe I can give them to a charity or a library or whatever. Like, and I think some I took to Peru, and I went to the plant medicine center or whatever you want to call it, retreat place, that I gave it to the library there. Like, I gifted it because I was like, I don't have a use for these books anymore. They helped me at the time that I bought them, but then really I'm only rereading 2 or 3 at the very core of what I feel connected to right now. And so there's no real need to constantly buy and overload myself with new information, just because I feel like it's coming from a place of fear and scarcity, because you feel like, oh, there's something else I still don't know, right? Like that little trick to life or whatever it is. Do you think you're like missing some secret?
Yeah, there's always one more like little life hack tool. And I remember when life hack, the word was a unique thing, and that there was a Reddit subreddit called life hacks. And you first learned that, oh, wow, I can use a lemon as a paperclip or whatever thing. And then you're so excited. And then month 3 of looking at that, like, I don't want life hacks. Who cares? I'll live a slow, inefficient life.
You just find your own way of doing things. And
Yeah.
how so this way of being, and I guess who you are right now in terms of your creative expression and your outlook on very things, how is that different to your parents and the way they shaped you? Because from what I understand, I know they're very like in the world, materialistic, not like possession oriented, but like materialistic science kind of focused. I think I've heard you say that before. So it'd be interesting to just
Yeah.
hear your situation when it came to the dichotomy of where you felt yourself being as an individual, and where you're like, oh, actually my parents are more like this. So like, what's right and wrong? Should I be more like them? Should I go and explore this thing?
Well, I've got I'm just assuming it might not be true with you, but I mean, I've got the immigrant parents, and immigrant parents are generally all about, family, education. That's like how you get a good life. And I just my brother was always super academically inclined. He's, a tenured professor now at Boston University, electrical engineering, works on stuff that's going to be used for hundreds of years from now, and understands all these complex equations. And I was an all right student, but I just could never compete with that, nor did I want to. So I think him being there, and the younger sibling tends to take on that role. Like the younger sibling tends to be the artist, and the older one tends to follow the rules, because that's, they're the first child, and that's all there was. Who knows if any of that is true? But with my parents, I think also leaving a country that was going through the revolution, and is now like a Muslim theocracy, or not bad saying Islam or anything like that, but just the state of Iran. They had to fled during the revolution. So I think they, from childhood on, have a bad taste in their mouth from religion. So, and then I was not brought up with any religion. So like I was less averse to it. And I find that all my friends that were brought up with heavy religion tend to be more science aligned, because they don't want someone to pull a fast one on them again. They're like, I'm not going to fall for that. You're saying we're all one. You're saying it's all as the proton is the black hole, and it's the holographic unified field theory. Shut up. It's not that. It's all entropy, and it's all stubborn particles. And
I exist and I'm important. Don't tell me otherwise.
yeah. So they and it's not like they're averse to the woo-woo stuff, but it's just I found over the years, anytime a woo-woo thing resonated with me and I would share it with them, it wouldn't work. It didn't have the same juice to it. Kind of like when you show a song you really like to a friend, and they're like, when's it starting? When's the part you wanted to show me? I'm like, that was it. That was the part. And then like, I guess it doesn't resonate with you. That's fine. So yeah, and I always liked magical stuff more than real world stuff. Like I never cared about, Call of Duty, Saving Private Ryan type of world. I liked Marvel more than that. I wanted the magic world of like a world that's nothing like here, where there's the laws of physics are broken and it's not explained why it's broken. That's just the universe we're in. It's a magic world. So I always liked that, bright colors, superheroes, magic stuff. Some people are the opposite, and I love those people too. The ones that are like, I don't like, they're wearing purple suits and they have laser eyes. Shut up. I don't. I don't want that. I want real world problems. So, yeah, and it might just be who I am. I don't know if it was exactly because of the parents, but who knows how much is nature, how much is nurture. It's probably about half and half.
It's interesting what you said about the older sibling. Did you ever feel like weren't weren't what's the word I'm looking for, enough or significant just because you didn't follow the same path or weren't educated enough in some way or lacking in some way just because
Oh
he was
yeah,
doing
still
this?
do. I still feel like I'm lacking in a lot of ways in that. And that's my own fault. My parents are not doing that to me at all, but I'm like, whether it's not enough attention, not enough status, not enough money, you're like kind of judging yourself like, oh, I should have more status and money. Otherwise, I'm a failure as a son. Especially during the periods where when I had to borrow money from my parents, aka take money, because who's kidding who? I'm not paying that back, and they know I'm not paying that back. But that's a terrible place to be. Like when I was transitioning from full time, employee, I was a software developer, and then went from that to trying to be full time artist. Like there's almost a year where I needed help, and like I've got this credit card debt, and like kind of maintaining the lie of being a professional artist, and I wasn't. Like, oh, mom and dad, can I borrow $500? Otherwise they're going to come take the car away. Little things like that. And then it makes you flash back on, oh, they spent all this time trying to tell me about education, and now I've grown up, and they see this failure of a son having to like borrow money from us and all that. So that's a terrible place to be. So that was another motivator of like, I want to be able to buy my parents stuff, not have to take even more from them. I want to be the guy that shows up at Christmas or whatever with like, happy birthday, pops, here's that new TV or camera you wanted, don't worry about it, it's nothing, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like that could be a driving force for a lot of people who are facing a situation where they just don't have enough, or they're that one step away from having what they think is going to make them fulfilled. Do you think that there's this one thing that you're searching for or looking for to fill that gap of being fulfilled or feeling like enough?
Mm. I don't know if I ever thought it was one thing. Various steps I thought would make me happy. Where, with the comedy thing, it's oh, I would be so happy if I could just host, if I could just be a middle act, if I could just headline. I don't have to be the most famous guy in the world. I just want to be like a food truck level comedian, just enough to get by month to month, and then if I could just be on TV, then that would be something I could show the next generation that I did that. I was on TV. And then, of course, it happens. And then, like Ram Dass says, anytime you have a desire, once you get that desire, the version of you that wanted it no longer exists, because now you're the person that has it. So it's like slipping through your fingers always. You can never hold on to it. It's kind of like that with objects too. It's like you buy any object, you buy a effects pedal, you buy this pen you really want, you buy this watch you really want, and then like I don't really care about this thing now. It's just taking up space. And we know deep down that material is not the answer. We've seen endless movies and talks about the real answer is within, so on. But you really have to, I feel like you do need to go to the top of whatever mountain you're seeking to see that it's lonely there and there's nothing there, in order to really accept it. Because even the story of the Siddhartha Buddha, the original Buddha, he was the rich prince that had everything. Then he left. He wasn't a poor guy that was like, this is great, I don't need that stuff. He had it and then did the other thing. So and perhaps you don't need all of the stuff to realize that, but you need your needs met. That whole you need at least, what is it, $70,000 a year, and then after that your happiness doesn't increase that much. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
some
up to a
type of
certain point.
economic theory or something. There is someone. It was some kind of economist who came. What was his name? David. I don't know.
Just David, like
Daniel
share.
Daniel Daniel
Oh,
Kahneman. I think
oh,
Daniel
Daniel
Kahneman.
Kahneman. Okay.
I think it was him. Yeah, that rings a bell. But I think there's something to that. Uh, but I still feel like even knowing that logically, people still chase after that. Like they chase after something external to fill the gap or to find some kind of meaning. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I could approach it from a evolutionary biology perspective, where we just know that we are these physical animals with these physical drives, like food and like aggression and sexuality, and all that is just kind of in us, whether we want it or not. Not combining all of them, like aggressive food sexuality, but individually we have all those things. So there was never a point in our hunter gatherer days where we had it all figured out. Even if you found all the bananas or whatever, they're going to go bad the next day. You have to always keep moving and searching for the next thing. And there's also that negativity bias where you only remember the bad things, and you tend to forget the good things, because remembering the bad things helps you later on to avoid the bad things, and that way your genes get to propel forward. And we are the product of what, a billion years of genetic mutation that brought us here in front of this internet that hasn't even been around that long. Like you and I both, I assume you're what, like 20s, 30s, you're like about the same age as me, pretty much. You remember a time where there wasn't really internet, or it was kind of slow, and then there was internet. And now we're like, remember we used to say, oh, I need to go online and do this. Now we're online nonstop. Even when you go offline, you're not really offline. So it switched from going online to sometimes going offline. And perhaps that'll replicate into the VR, where it's like sometimes I'm not in VR, but most of the time I've got my contacts in, I've got my haptic gloves, I've got my dick and ball underwear that does the stuff there. And we live in the virtual world. It's what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I feel like we are going more and more towards that place where it's default to just be online and to be switched on, to be connected, and it's like rare to have the moments where you have to actually plan to be offline. We're like, I'm actually doing nothing today. I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to have some downtime, and it's like you have to schedule it. It's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah, especially even me as a self-employed person. I don't have a boss I worry about, but I have customers that I worry about, because if I mailed something and it got lost in the mail, and if I wanted to go off the grid for a week and I'm not answering emails, I need to at least have someone answer those emails so that that customer can know where the package is. Do they need a new one shipped to them? Little stuff like that. And there's, at least I have found, there is no such thing as mailbox money. There's no such thing as passive income. You still have to be like there and oiling the machine and adjusting this and making sure this is not on fire anymore, and so on. So it's, you can have somewhat passive income, but it's still something you need to maintain.
Do you like doing that?
Yeah, I think it's the only game in town for me. I can't imagine doing um I mean, I've long left the realm of thinking I could go get a job somewhere. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. Like what would I put on the resume? How would I make a cover letter? How would I not tank the job interview? Because I've done that a lot. I remember when I was desperate, I would get a job interview, and then when I'm there, like the other part of me is like sabotaging it. They're like, what do you really want to do? I'm like, oh, I want to draw cartoons. Here's my cartoons, and there's this thing. And it's like, do you like web development? No, not really. I mean, I just kind of do it for, and so on. You're communicating in subtle ways to the potential employer that you are not the right guy, and perhaps they might like you as a person, and that sort of thing, but they're like, this is not going to be my employee. This is the
This
least
guy's
likely
a
guy.
joke. Who is this guy? Why did you apply for the job?
But those were important moments, because some of those job interviews I remember giving me a little confidence boost, because some of them liked the stuff I was putting out back when that stuff could not support me. But they were like, you know what? Honestly, you should be doing this. You shouldn't be working here. You should do this. And then the hiring manager guy like kind of reveals a bit of themselves to me. They're like, I've got a band and we play blah, blah. And so you get to hear a little bit more about their creative endeavors. And then it turns out everybody has a little creativity in them. Nobody wants to be Alan Greenspan, except Alan Greenspan, maybe. Is he dead? That's just my example of like a purely economic guy.
I don't know if he's dead, first of all, but yeah, It's hard to imagine him being creative, but I think essentially we all have a creative. How can we print more money today? Let me just, make a
Yeah,
mini movie to show the employees how we're going to print another $1 billion.
yeah.
Anyway,
I really do. I think it would be good to have attention be the currency, though, if not the only currency. But I feel like value is not completely being transferred. Like a lot of people are doing work and not getting paid for it, and a lot of people are doing nothing and getting paid for it. There's like a wrong flow of energy, and money is just an energy exchange, but it's the traffic jam is kind of messed up now. We need it to be more like Vietnam. Have you seen videos of is that where I'm thinking of? There's some Asian country where the traffic flow is just insane, where there's no stoplights and every car is getting by and they're looping around and there's a traffic director doing that. And then here in Los Angeles, it's just stoplight, you wait. There's not a car coming, you go. And I feel like a lot of our there's a metaphor there with finance where like people can work 3 jobs and not afford to like make a living even, and then there's people that don't work at all and are billionaires.
where do you see it going in terms of the economy and money and exchange?
The optimist in me says that it's going to the standard of living is always going to go up, yet we're still always going to have that disparity. Because right now, you'll see extremely poor people with like a computer better than what we use to send the astronauts to the moon, right? Like everyone's smartphone, even if you've got an iPhone 4, is better than what the best computer in the 70s or 60s was. So we're going to have that, but it's not going to be a socialist utopia. I think the split is going to get even more. I think the poor are going to get even more poor. The rich are going to get even more rich. But overall, the health and standard of things will probably be better with like it's not a straight line graph, but like this kind of graph that goes jaggedly up. That's my guess, but um I don't know. I just don't see but then again, of course, you can't predict the future like we've seen in the last 2 years or a
Mm.
year. Do you have thoughts on that? Do you think we'll become more, because our bodies are pretty socialist, right? Like the body, if a certain organ or a section like needs resources, the rest of the body kind of works together, like make sure this gets its resources, everything else keeps like a reserve bank. I mean, I don't know the terms that well. I'm not a biologist, or even I don't think I could even teach science like like middle school science. I would probably get fired from it, but I just know the basic like our body is socialist, and ultimately if we do want to be a spacefaring golden age society, we do need to not have that underclass, because if the underclass gets too poor, then they revolt, right? You need like some
You need some type
uh
of balance. I don't think I
mhm.
have any thoughts on that. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about what the ideal situation or the utopia would look like. But I don't know. I feel like moving more towards a type of community spirit would be would benefit us, like just at a very base level, like helping people where you can. Like it sounds so
Yeah.
simple, but you just don't see that. Like in London, people don't even speak to each other if they're even with your neighbor. Like you don't even know half the people that live on your own street. So something as basic as knowing who's on your street, that's crazy. It's like 100 people on this street. Why don't we all know each other? Like how much information exchange, resource exchange could happen simply just because you know what everyone does on the street. And I'm not talking
Yeah.
about like hacking into their phone and seeing their text messages. I'm talking about like just generally knowing what this human being does. Like what's your story, like why are you here, and how, like what you're doing day to day. Let's speak to each other and have
Yeah.
basic conversation. Like so much exchange of resource and information could happen if more conversations took place. But also I don't know if we've created the right container or culture for that to flourish, because like you see here in London, working in the city for example, and being in the heart of London, everyone's rushing to just get to work, earn their wages, then go home and try and drown themselves in alcohol to forget about the fact that they had to rush all day, and were depressed about sitting in a chair for 8 hours making 70 grand 70, 80 grand a year, and still not being able to find happiness. And it's like, well, what if you slowed down and reflected on just doing some of the basic things to make yourself feel more connected to the people around you? And maybe that would start to make you realize that actually we are a social animal by nature.
Yeah.
So cutting yourself off from people and drowning yourself into external things like alcohol and chasing more and more money and buying more material things and being at competition with looking the best in terms of your Instagram profile and the things that you can post and the stories that you can brag about. Like that's, I'm not saying that's, you shouldn't do that. We live, I think we're living in a dual world. Well, it's non-duality, but like, you know, if you zoom in, it's the kind of
Yeah.
dual. Like, so I think it's balance, right? So being able to live in this world, but realizing you're not of this world, if that makes sense, right? Like, so being able to indulge without attachment.
Yeah.
And I
It
think that's where
reminds me of,
that's where people get messed up and get tripped up. So if we could connect at a base community level, then that would be great. I'm not saying go as extreme as what Osho did in Wild Wild Country. I don't know if you've seen that.
yeah, I did.
That would be pretty cool to experience that. I would do that just to say that I've done it, to see what it feels like. Because really, the way they're showing it on the documentary, that's one thing. It's like, but did that actually happen? Let me go back to 1970s or whenever it was. Let me experience it, and then I'll know for sure. I'm not just going to go off a documentary. There may be some truth to that, there may not be, but like, it'd be good to experience it to see, okay, outside of the container we're in right now, obviously it's not working. There may be other ways. Why can't we try them?
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough to implement those on a large scale, but we should definitely be trying them on smaller scales. And I read something recently that a thought on what you were saying, like you don't know that your neighbors, like you live next to 100 people or whatever, and you haven't met a single one of them. I read that friendships are based off of either proximity or shared interests. Sometimes both, if you're lucky. I mean, if you have a neighbor that has the same interests in you, that's great. But we've shifted from friendships being based on proximity, from your local friend group, to being about shared interests, where you and I are having this conversation. We're across the entire ocean and we're in different time zones, yet I'm choosing to speak to you through Zoom rather than my neighbor who probably doesn't have as many interests. Maybe they do, but we just didn't, we haven't met. And so we've kind of shifted into that, and perhaps we get a little balance of that in the future. And that's kind of more of a transportation problem, because if you can close the gap of locality and just have that instant teleportation thing like in Star Trek, I don't know how to make it, but we also thought the flip phone was crazy. So maybe we'll have teleportation one day. We'll just figure something about quantum entanglement that's like one little tweak this way, like, oh, we got it. We figured out teleportation. And then we'll take that for granted and so on. And then it'll be all about warp drive. Like, yeah, we've got teleportation on the Earth scale, but we don't have warp drive and we're stuck here. Can you imagine what it's like just being stuck on one planet? That'll probably be 100 years from now, if it's not all gone. Which, isn't it funny? You always have to preface everything with, if we don't destroy ourselves, if we don't blow the place up first, which there's always, you have to acknowledge climate change and nuclear proliferation. But I think we'll be okay. I think we've had nukes for like, close to 100 years and we're still here. So I think we come very close to extinction, but overall, I feel like we're going to make it. I think humanity has a destiny to become the aliens that visit other places. We'll see.
Isn't this crazy though? Like, we are aliens to other planets right now. Like,
Yeah.
we think of aliens as like, oh my god, these foreign creatures and we can't let them in, and like, oh, that's so scary and better get prepared. But actually they're looking at us and we're foreign. Like,
Yeah, we are.
we're acting as if like we're the center of the universe, and it's like anyone or anything that doesn't look like us must be destroyed. Why? Like, what? Sometimes I look outside, I'm just like, where are we? I feel like I'm inside a snow globe. This is mental.
We are in a snow globe. Did you ever watch Red Dwarf, the sci-fi comedy?
No.
It's an English show. I think it went off the air back in the 90s, but I always liked that. I mean, the quick description of it was the lowest ranking member of this spaceship gets punished and is put into quarantine, like stasis, because that's the punishment of the future. You miss out like a year of life. You just get put into a freeze tank, and then you come back out in in a year. That's, I don't know, whatever. But there's a radiation leak on the ship, and then everybody is dead except for him, the lowest ranking member. And he comes out and everybody's gone, and he's just alone there with the hologram on the ship. And throughout the whole arc of the show, the cool thing they did with it is there's never aliens. The only beings he ever encounters are beings that evolved out of Earth or some AI thing that also came from Earth. But then when you're looking back, you're like, he never met anyone outside of Earth in the whole galaxy. It all just propelled out of there.
Yeah, these
It's probably not that though. It's
these,
probably there's probably tons of other lives out there.
yeah, these ideas like really intrigue me because I have you seen that documentary? What's his name, by Stephen Greer?
Stephen Greer, what's it called?
What's it called?
Stephen Greer sounds familiar.
Contact of the Fifth Kind.
Close Encounters.
Close Encounters. That's the one. Yeah.
Oh,
Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. That's the most recent one that was released, I think, the beginning of last year or mid last year. With his most up to date kind of research, and it kind of broke down the meditation groups that he did with people, and then kind of footage of UFOs or other beings that would come and kind of appear because of the meditation that they did, and the energy that the group put on that one intention of, we want to see a sign, and we welcome you basically, and it's safe for you to show yourself to us, and then they would appear. And he was basically breaking down the fact that actually anyone could do it if you put your intention in the direction of kind of creating a safe space for them to appear, then that could happen. I just found that to
when
be
the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
I found that at every kind of milestone of my own journey. That's why I feel like some of the things that you may come across, or some of okay, let me start again. Some of the things that you know now, if they were presented to you 10 years ago, you would have dismissed entirely, and you may not have even understood them. But when you're ready to absorb them, then it appears, because you can actually do something with that information, or you can understand it a bit better, and then it actually impacts your life in a completely different way. And that's why I feel like if we knew about our future right now, like individual destinies or individual adventures, like where you're going to be at 90 years old or 60 years, or even next week, where you're going to be. I don't want to know that.
Hitler.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm just the next Hitler in 40 years.
Well, you get a glimpse of that. How would you feel? That's insane.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, if I was in private, I would be like, well, this should be interesting. But if I'm in a public setting, I'm like, I must do the right thing, and then, end it there. But then I realized that they just made a deep fake of the future, and that wasn't actually the future. That's the thing. Like, if you're shown a glimpse of anything in the future, you're like, what guarantee do you have that that is the timeline that you're going to be on? If we're using whatever logic, whatever the Marvel Endgame logic of that splits off into a different timeline because you've been shown this information, which veers you off that path into a kind of adjacent path. And so you can't really know the future. There's that paradox there, but there's unlimited futures. And we think of time as one axis, and it's linear, and it can't be molded or shaped or anything like that. Molded and shaped are the same thing, but but perhaps there's 5-dimensional beings that time is just a spatial dimension to them, and then it's not a big deal to go back and forth. They explored that in what's it called? Not Ascension, Arrival, the movie where the aliens come and they teach humans how to speak outside of time. Did you ever watch that?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it. No, I'll make a note of that. Actually, is it a documentary or a film?
No, it's a film, and it's based off of a short story. But not to no, it's kind of a spoiler, so just I won't say it. But basically, they have a different relationship to time, and time is just a spatial dimension to them. So they're like not worried about death, and they when you die, they call it your time ran out. And it's not a sad thing. It's just, no, that's the end of your loop. Like, you were born knowing that's your loop, and you just kind of have it the same way you have your, your name or your hair color or something. It's like, no, that's my time. It came. I knew this was coming. I have to fulfill the destiny of dying in this moment in this way. There was no way around it.
What do you think happens when you die?
So I I recognize that awareness cannot be aware of not being awareness. So the whole oblivion thing, I abandoned that as a working model, like somewhere in my middle teenage years. You know, you hear Alan Watts and people like that say that, and then that kind of busts open your head. Like, yeah, you can't be nothingness. That already is taken. That seat is filled. Like you are always some form of awareness, whether it's a very expansive one or a extremely limited one, because there's varying levels of decision space. Perhaps you have some kind of neurological injury and then you're stuck in a bed and all you can do is just blink your eyes and like say yes to show me this TV show, and don't blink your eyes if you don't want it. So that can be this. I'm not saying that you're guaranteed like a body and expansive imagination, but I think that um there probably is some reflection that goes on of what you just experienced before you reset, because you can't just hold all experiences into the next one. It would just be too garbled and like you have too much to keep track of. So I think there's some period of reflection, and then you hang out, and then you can choose to come back and have another experience through the lens of limitation, which we're in right now. We are not omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent beings. We're limited. We view time as this one axis. You can only think about one thing at a time. You only have so much energy in the day, 24 hours a day, that kind of thing. So that's my main working model. But also anything's on the table. It could be nothing like that at all. But it's not nothing. It's something, and that something is always a mystery. That's my answer.
Alan Watts says something interesting, and you mentioned him, so this came to mind. And I listened to his one of his lectures recently, and he was talking about imagine going to sleep and never waking up again. Just ponder that for a moment. And it's funny because when you think about going to sleep, you're still awake to some
Yeah, you
extent.
are. And
So,
sometimes
but
you're
you're not.
sure you're awake. Sometimes you're sure that's reality.
But which one is real? Which one isn't? Like you dream thinking it's real, and your physiological reactions are genuinely real. Like they're really engaged. Like you're either scared shitless and feel like you're pissing yourself, or you're having an orgasm. Like it's
Yeah.
everything in between happens there, but you're not awake. So what is that? And then you wake up here and it's like, well, where did I just wake up from?
Yeah,
And then when
exactly.
you were born, where did I just wake up from? So
And it could be Matryoshka dolls, the Russian dolls, and it goes like that
that's
forever.
crazy.
Inception style, like dreams within dreams within dreams. My friend, the ungoogleable Michelangelo, always talks about the cheating the ferryman theory, where you cheat the ferryman by like reviewing your past life and just kind of escaping into that one and then escaping into the one into that, and just you just keep going recursively inwards. But from your perspective, it's fine. You don't need to be in the master outside it all universe. You're fine running this program loop in the San Junipero world of Black Mirror or whatever. But uh yeah, I don't know. There's no way current me can actually give the right answer. And even if I did, the system might change the answer based on what I give it.
It's all
Like if
programming. It's all programming. So like
yeah,
everything that we speak about and discuss today is all based on our current experience. Like, and that's limited to the five senses we have. That's it. Unless you've, I don't know, somehow you've transcended all five senses, and now you are your body, but you're also not your body, and you're everything around you. Like some gurus or
yeah,
yogis have, or siddhis have done. Like they've reached that state, or they say they've reached that state where they are everything and nothing at the exact same time, which is insane. Like
yeah,
you're everywhere and nowhere.
yeah, that's where you want to be, or where you don't want to be.
Where
Because
exactly?
if you want to be there, that's the first step to not getting in the club, is wanting
Yeah,
to do it. Like the kind of people that want to learn a martial art so they can kick people's asses. And it's like, no, you must learn this so that you can never use it, no matter what.
yeah. It's that whole thing about desire, right? Like you need to let go of desire because desire is where suffering and attachment is, and you can't get to that place. Like you can't get to the room or enter the room of infinite love and infinite wisdom and infinite nothingness if you want to go there. which is kind of weird because it's like, well, then how do I get in if I don't want to go there? And then you basically go around in circles to the point where like, oh, fuck it, I don't care, I don't care, I don't want to go. And then the door opens. You're like, oh, cool.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to let go of it all to have it all. And it's the most counterintuitive thing you'll ever have to do. And I don't know it. I don't master that at all. I'm still working on it myself.
But you know what? You do. So talking about this, it feels like you have, though, to some extent, not mastered that, but you're on your way to doing that. And I say that because listening to the brief information that I know about you in terms of your journey so far, to some extent, don't you feel like you've had to let go for the next opportunity or for the next part of curiosity or creativity to unfold and for you to follow that? Like that can't happen, especially in my own journey. That couldn't have happened if I was like, no, I have to be a lawyer, that's the way it has to be. And that, I'm so sure that's right. Only from moving away from scarcity and fear, that if I don't do this, what's going to happen, to if I don't do this, what else is possible? Well, everything's possible. But
Yeah.
I have to be comfortable going into the unknown. And again, this was something Alan Watts said, which really hit me, was like, people are really scared to go into the unknown because it's like, well, what is that? Like, I need a structure and a framework. Like, what's step one and what's step two? And what's going to happen in January and February and March if I don't pursue law or whatever it is? But
Yeah.
the unknown also contains every single possibility outside of law, right? Like
Yeah.
outside of your current knowledge. Because even with your current knowledge, you think, okay, creating artwork, singing, playing instruments, and creating art and stand up, like that seems pretty good of a life. But if you let go of that, which could be a scary thought, there's a million and one other creative endeavors that could be presented to you that you could actually be good at, because you're holding onto that framework. It's never getting a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah, and I might be forced out of it. Like I could get in some accident or have some disease that like forces me to, like, I don't have motor function anymore. And so much of what I do is with my hands and speaking and stuff. So if that was taken away, that would be quite a challenge. And when I say I'm not there yet, it's not like I don't consciously know the right thing to say or how I should be feeling, but I just know if I had if a close family member died or was hurt or something like that, like I know that deep down, I know that they're going to die no matter what. We're all going to die, and that I do have to let go of everything and all that. But I would still grieve. I would still be upset. I would still, even for little stuff, not even big stuff. If my Amazon package of boxes, like a box of boxes that I need to use to ship stuff, if that gets lost or it's late, even if they'll replace it for free, I'll be like, what the fuck? Where's my box of boxes? I'm owed this box of boxes that I paid $15 to have shipped here for free next day. What is wrong with this country? And so on. And then you get over it in 10 minutes. But I'm still, I mean, you can ask my girlfriend. I'll rage out at video games. And I know that's fake. And I know that even if I've beaten the game before, we're like replaying a game that we beat 10 years ago, and I'm still getting mad at this level that I beat already. So maybe that's like what I chose to do too. Maybe it's like kind of fun to get angry and fun to feel sad. Maybe that's the overarching point of all that, instead of just, this all day and like we're all one and it's all groovy. It's like sometimes it's fun to not say it's all one and it's not all groovy. Add some
That's
contrast.
yeah, exactly. That's where the fun comes in, because when you get to that point of being too much fixated into one way of being, like, oh, oneness and meditation, and you have to be centered and focused on this, and I have to do these practices every day, you're trapped again. Like, that's another framework you've just bought into, thinking this is the right way to live life, and if you don't live life this way, then you're not going to be successful, or you're not peaceful, or you're not going to progress and like develop or evolve, whatever it is. So I don't know, it's about just being fully embedded in the human experience, which is everything we just talked about, from pretending you're a Buddha and meditating and feeling like I'm better than everyone else, and I'm spiritually developing, which everyone secretly thinks they are. And then on the left hand side, I want to play Call of Duty and throw my controller at the wall and
Yeah.
get pissed off that my Amazon package is 10 minutes late, or my internet connection dropped out for 5 seconds. I'm going to punch my screen. We've all done it. And that's the fun, though. It's like being human is like walking both those paths simultaneously.
Yeah. And I think those little moments of rage often have nothing to do with the moment itself. You'll see this in relationships all the time where the fight has nothing to do with what you're fighting about. It's like it's built up tension over months or years that you weren't communicating, and not just in relationships, but to yourself. Perhaps you weren't letting yourself feel your feelings, so then you're expressing that rage in traffic or towards the video game, and it has to be let out somehow. So it's letting those pressure valves go all the time. I think that's why so many gurus are drunks, or like, sexual abusers and things like that. They get it, and then they also have that shadow self which is amplified. Not all of them, but you just hear it a lot. Like Alan Watts was like he was super alcoholic, wasn't he? For the most part.
I don't
Maybe
know
not
about that.
abusive, but he was very like Ram Dass talks about his like sexuality, like that was his like
Mm,
thing, and Alan Watts was the alcohol. Chokyam Trungpa Rinpoche, also the boozer. But I mean, you don't have to be a teetotaler. It's fun to drink it up.
yeah, no, I think that Ram Dass talks about the shadow self and those who pretend that they shouldn't be doing some of these activities, so they end up going down the path of suppressing them and not
Yeah, and
accepting them fully, and then that becomes your dynamite, I guess. And
the
you look,
horny celibate,
yeah,
is what he calls it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And he said like there's you've got these two groups of men debating whether to go to the whorehouse or go to the temple. And then the men that went to the temple spent all the time thinking about the whorehouse. And then the people that went to the whorehouse spent all their time there thinking about they should be in the temple. And both of them got nothing out of it.
Yeah, that's interesting though, isn't it? It's like you're wherever you are. It's like meditation essentially is where your focus of attention is at that time. And I think Osho talks about this. And that's when I started to transition from thinking you have to sit peacefully for an hour a day to be meditating to whatever I give my full, undivided, present attention to. That's meditation. Like this conversation we've had for the past hour and a half. Meditate's a form of meditation because I'm not thinking about like all of the other bits and pieces I have to do and what tomorrow morning is going to be like. It's fully tuned into the moment.
Yeah, and it's content. Isn't that the best of both worlds? We got to meditate while producing a piece of content. Whereas if we sat still, we probably would have amplified our neurosis and we wouldn't have any content to show for it. And it's all about content these days.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And talking about content, I want to just speak a little bit about what the sort of stuff you're putting on Instagram and the myriad of things you've got on your website, from comics to books to games, and the merchandise store. When you're putting out a post or creating a piece of content nowadays, is there a creative process that you have?
Yeah, I think so. It starts with the idea. I don't know where the idea comes from. Oftentimes it comes late at night. It can occur in various parts of the day. Perhaps you're in the shower or you're right about to fall asleep and you don't have a pen nearby and you got to just grab something. You grab your phone and you put it in the notes section, something. Or if you've really not planned, like just anything that will remind you that you needed to remember something, like turn your alarm clock the wrong way, like make something wrong with your room, with whatever you have to indicate to future you, hey, don't forget what past you told you to remember. So you've got the idea, right? And then from there, I sketch it out in pencil. From the pencil sketch, I add the ink using like a micron pen. And then you erase the pencil part. Then I scan it. Then I color it in Photoshop. Then I do whatever else to it. Like you add little textures, you just kind of play with it while also listening to a podcast or music or binaural beats or something in the background. And um, then I post it. Or sometimes I like to show my girlfriend it and be like, "Hey, is this anything? Does this work? Is this deep or is this stupid?" And then she gives me her honest take on it. And normally you don't have to even wonder if they're being honest. If you can see by someone's reaction whether they actually like it or not. I heard that with music. That's a good thing. Don't even ask someone like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Just play it for them, and then if they resonate with it, you'll know. And if they don't, like, you don't want them to lie to you and say like, "No, this is great, I love it." So That's the process with my particular visual art. But I mean, there's no set way to do it. I think the real thing is just have the idea, and then when you're not in creative idea mode and you're in do stuff mode with your hands, like you want to do this type of thing, then take the idea from earlier when it had that spark and then make it. And I think a lot of people try to like merge it all together, like you're supposed to be ideaing and making and this, where the creativity part should be sloppy, especially with writing. Like you shouldn't compose on in a word processor like Google Drive or Word. Like that's too clean. It auto corrects. It looks like it's finished. It should be on a napkin. It should be with a pen that doesn't write that well, like just the most raw you could get. And then typing is different than writing. Does that make sense? There's like the writing part, which is creative, and then there's the typing part, which is not really creative. It's more doing and organizing and structuring. And do you know Doug Stanhope? He's a comedian.
The name rings a bell. Yeah.
He had this old bit where he says that psychedelic drugs gave me the broader viewpoint to come up with these ideas. Cigarettes gave me the focus to be able to sit down and write it down, and then alcohol gave me the courage to sit in front of all of you people and tell you these ideas. So I needed all of them, and I liked his particular process of like all these various substances are part of the creative process, not a hindrance to them.
Do you find yourself needing tools or resources or
vices?
Yeah, to get yourself into the zone.
No, I'm pretty lucky in that I don't have the addict brain where like I don't need I haven't really drank alcohol, and I don't remember the last time I even had any alcohol. I don't have
is that because you've got a hangover right now?
Some form of it, but like I mean cannabis is fun and it's legal here, so you've got the various gummies and tinctures and vape pens and things like that. I think that puts you in a different state. Sometimes you can overdo it, of course, to where you're just doing it out of habit and you realize you're not even getting anything out of it. Some people, alcohol works really well. I'm not really a cigarette smoker. No pills. No, I think freedom is my thing. Like I have to be able to wake up when I want to wake up. I have to not have any accountability towards things. I mean, I don't have any children at the moment, so perhaps that'll change if I find myself in that scenario. Like, of course, you can't just be like, sorry, baby, you got to do you for a bit. I need to do me time. So your schedule changes under that. But currently, just me. So I like the freedom part, because if you force it, it's not going to happen. You got to do it when you are excited about it.
When the
or at least somewhat excited. You don't have to be like head over heels, but at least be like, no, I feel like coloring right now. I feel like drawing right now.
Yeah, there's like a base level of inspiration there that you just have to express in some form. And I found like throughout my writing process, actually, it is messy, but I found that what worked well for me on some days was having a notebook and just a ballpoint pen, having my headphones plugged in. I was just listening to instrumental music, and particularly Ludovico Einaudi. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Ludovico, what era?
He is
current artist.
Current, yeah, he's current. He's an Italian composer, absolutely amazing. It's not the old school Beethoven type of classical music that most people would think about that gets you into focusing on studying. It's more, it's very modern and intense. It's got a lot of love and creativity in it, and I'll send you some stuff afterwards.
Oh please, really, yeah.
I have actually a music playlist that I put together during that period called Creative Love, and that's the playlist I go to when I need it oozing out of me, and it takes me right back there. So I'll send that to you.
On. Yeah, and so much. I mean, we put classical music on a pedestal, and we forget that pretty much all of it was funded by the Pope and the church, right? Like it wasn't just everybody has a SoundCloud and can experiment with Logic and Ableton and Reaper and stuff. It's like, nope, these are the composers that we've deemed fit to compose. These are the compositions that are not too enticing and not too bland. These are, and they're great compositions for what they are, but like you learn as you study music that like, oh, this is this type of music. It's not better than the other types. It's lacking in a lot of areas, which is why, like, you know, Miles Davis, he went to Juilliard and he was like, this is missing what, you know, the people playing in Birdland are playing. Like, this is missing what Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie are up to with bebop and jazz and stuff. And then the jazz musicians hated the classical musicians. Are like, this is white music. This is too grid oriented. It's too structured. This isn't good. And then Miles is like, no, you gotta combine all the music, bitch.
I
So it's good
resonate
to
with that.
combine
Yeah,
all of it. Yeah.
100%. That reminds me of Maurice White's story. I don't know if you have
Of
read his story.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Maurice is
What story?
his general journey. Like, I've been reading his autobiography or biography, whichever one it is, about his own life.
The one he wrote is Otto, I think. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that one, it was. I've got halfway through it, and it's phenomenal because his journey is essentially that. You know, him being really good at drums, being obsessed with it, doing whatever it takes, going through the the period of not having much money and still chasing it, and that kind of inspirational period. But essentially, when he finds his lane, it's kind of this beautiful thing of him growing into himself and being courageous enough to say, you know what, everyone's doing this rock and roll type of stuff, and I know there's, you know, all of this stuff going on in the 50s and 60s that's shaping the way that music is right now and what's acceptable, but I want to merge different things. And I see my shows being like a theater production with like lots of
Ooh.
people on stage dancing, and there's going to be like 5 or 6 different singers and lots of live musicians playing in the background. People are like, what is that? Like, that doesn't exist. Like, that's not a thing that people watch. It's like, you do a piece and you present it on stage, you do a show, and then you go to the next seat and you do a show. Like, what are you talking about doing like a theater? And he was like, no, I see it happening. Like, that's like, I can see it being an act kind of thing. You know, I want lots of people involved on stage, and I want it to be fun and exciting, and I want it to be soul and R&B and rock and roll, disco mixed. And they were like, okay, if you want to do that. And he just continued down that path, and you see how he fell into the right resources and the people and the experiences, and came into conversation with all the right people to get him to where he needed to go. And yeah, I'm only halfway through it, but
Oh, hell yeah. I got to
yeah.
check that out. I'm a big fan of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and, you know, Maurice Verdine White. I think there's another brother in it. It might just be the two of them. But I remember a lot of people saying something to the effect of like, um, the white kids loved Led Zeppelin, the black kids loved Funkadelic, the freaks loved David Bowie, but everybody loved Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah,
Like
it
back
was
in the 70s. So
infectious. Yeah,
they hit
it's
everyone. I got to see them once. This was like in
really wow.
2013. I mean, of course, this is way in their later
Yeah,
years, and
yeah.
they're playing the hits and stuff. But I didn't get to meet Maurice, but I got to meet Verdine White, and he thought I was the helper guy. I think I looked like one of the backstage helper guys, and he's like, "I really appreciate all the help you've been giving us this evening," and I just accepted the compliment. I'm like, "No problem." We got
I'll take
backstage.
that. Yeah, that's amazing, man. But yeah, his story, and the other thing that was that stood out to me was at the beginning, to give context around who he was as a person growing up and his outlook on life is very spiritual. Like, he was someone who's very grounded in spirituality, and he wasn't focused on any particular type of framework that was being pushed at the time, whether it's Christianity or Islam with Malcolm X and that movement, and all of these other things, civil rights. He understood the importance of what was happening, but he wasn't drawn to being boxed off to one way of being. Like, the way he explains himself in his story was more about being a seeker and exploring and understanding, what is it I'm here to do. I know music's my thing, but what does that look like? I need to go and find it. I don't want to hear it from other people. I need to figure that out. And I feel like that really just that hit home somewhere for me, because I don't, though I was born in West London in a Hindu family, going to the temple and all that kind of stuff, it's like I don't resonate with any of that stuff as part of my core identity. As I said, like, over the last few years, it's been all about unlearning and removing the layers to
Yeah.
see what is it that I actually am at the core. Like, I need to figure that out for myself. And essentially, I guess everyone to some extent has the calling, or if you're courageous enough, you answer the calling to go on that journey of seeking, like the hero's journey, the whole Joseph Campbell following your bliss, it could be a scary thing. But if you do it, you end up being a lone seeker, not lonely as in depressed and anxious, but I mean lonely to the point where it's your own unique journey, but you'll meet lots of cool, amazing people and experiences and resources along the way that will help you just elevate and evolve as you go. But you're not attached or detached from anything. It's just, it is what it is. This is what's helping me right now. May not be available tomorrow. Maybe something else will present itself, but it's like enjoying it as it's happening, knowing that it's just me and whatever needs to show up will show up.
Yeah,
That makes
stepping
sense. That was like a
stones.
run.
No, that's a good one. Highlight that. You could clip that one. And I mean, I'm an outsider here. I don't know a ton about it, but as far as all the main religions go, I think Hindu is the coolest one. It's got the most expansive universe. I mean, you got Kali, Shiva, Ganesh. I mean, the other ones, what you've got the Holy Trinity, you've got Allah, like you've got Buddha, Moses, sure, this is fun. There's a little bit of fun, but like the color explosion and all that. And I mean, every religion has its good things and its faults, but I always thought like, wow, they went so much farther out. Like that's the overachiever in the class. Whereas the other ones, like we got our main god, we got our main prophet, and we've got our side character, best friend and dog. And then the Hindu
Here's a
one
few
is
rules. As long
yeah.
as you do that, you're all good. For us, it's like it's more about just being a seeker. I think that's what it is. Like Sikhism, Hinduism, are like similar in some aspects, and the core, I guess, basis. I'm not an expert by any means, but I think from what I understand, the core basis is seek within yourself, and you'll find what it is you're a part of. Like you'll figure it out. You don't need to rely on some external rules to figure it out. You already have like an embedded code of wisdom and information within you, which you can access if you get rid of all the stuff that you're shoveling down your mouth and through all your five senses to distract you.
Yeah.
So, oh man, I feel like this could go on for hours and hours, but I'm just
It's the infinite advice knowledge thing. See, here we are talking about letting go of everything, and then we end up talking about letting go of everything for hours. So
yeah,
it's recursively paradoxical
it is.
advice. So
So
forget everything we just told you, listeners, and just look within and just don't even think about anything we just said.
delete this podcast. No, but this has been good, man. I super appreciate your time, your wisdom, your energy. More than anything, your energy. I think everyone's real signature is the energy that they create on this planet, that they leave on this planet. On a serious note, like it's the thing that makes us unique, and more so than a tombstone or the body of work that you do, and the name that you have and the accolades, all that kind of stuff. Just it's the energy that you put out, and that has a ripple effect to the people and the things around you. So and yours is amazing. There's not really a
Oh,
word to
thank
put
you.
it, but it's really it's authentic. There's like a lightness about it, so I appreciate you sharing that, man.
Oh, thank you. Would it be great if I accidentally leave the Zoom call on and you just see a different face? I'm just like, I'm beating my kids or whatever, and the camera's still on. I was just acting.
kicking your cat. You're kicking your cat out of the room. Like, what do you get out of it?
Oh, I would never. He would kill me. He kicks our ass very often. But
Cats are amazing. Cats
That's a
are
whole
amazing.
other podcast.
Have you got any funny cat videos? I need to see some good cat videos.
Oh, I've got like several hard drives full. I got to pick out the right ones. No, that's all our phones. Me and my girlfriend, just all we do is take photos of our cat. And like we have various paintings of him that like friends and family have given us. So it's this big shrine to this 17-pound black cat with a attitude from hell.
Well, but listen, I as I said, I appreciate you making the time to share with us, and I feel like this is probably one of many conversations we're going to have. As you said, there's probably going to be a few more podcasts down the pipe.
Anytime, man. Yeah, just let me know. I'm happy to come back on.